Good morning. Today is June 6th. It's June 4th, 2021. I have been sitting here wondering how I was going to gather all these collaborating thoughts, all these threads and streams of consciousness that are gathering at this point today. And in the search for that, in the look for that, there was so much compelling, so much tossing and turning and vying for my attention, wanting to be heard by you, wanting to be known by you, wanting to be awake with you. So as I was sitting here, I thought, well, I'll start with my, I'll start with letting you know I'm a seer and a prophetess and a mystic, and yeah, there's an anguish to that, but there's an extraordinary privilege also. Not a privilege of caste or a privilege of hierarchy, but a privilege of probably awakening. But no matter what I say today, or no matter what I can get present today, I'm very clear about today. I'm very clear that there has been a great stirring in the ethers, and that my job today is twofold. One is to represent the greater realms of reality of which we're a part, that I have the persistent opportunity to walk with persistently. I remember those times, and I wish those times on all people. I remember those times where my imagination, and maybe even my hope, although I don't remember it that way at the time, that there really was a larger realm of reality of which we were a part, and that I could really be personally related to that. And then through a series of events, a good portion of them are in my book, An Hour's Tale of a Modern Mystic, the veil bled through. I wasn't separate anymore. It was just like walking with you. It was sentient, empathic, holy, sacred, intimate, precious. And then the struggle to find whatever ways available to have human beings be able to cross that threshold of familiarity and not be alone in their world anymore. But not be part of a greater whole as theory, but part of as a greater whole as fact, just like you consider your hand a fact. So I have knowings for someone like me that are similar to other people who have different trades and different capacities, They have knowings too, just as all of you do. But I was shown my 75th year, which happened May 28th of this year. And there was an omen, a sign that I would get that would let me know that, let's see, how do I put it in human terms? Kind of that everything was on track. I suppose the hard part is, how do you say everything, what everything on track means? But in this call today, because it is so important today, I will do my best. What was the sign? The sign was that in the field of Tantra Mat, that people would, how do I say it? Imagine you're part of this incredible energy system and you're all threads of light. You're all woven, crocheted movements of light. And that there's a pulse, there's a fortuitous pulse that lays even beyond the human heartbeat. But that all humanity lives in that pulse. We are going to call it the pulse of creation. I'm just one of those humans that lives closer to that pulse than to the social life of human beings. So they're layers. We're all in those woven, crocheted fabrics of spiraling beings that we are. There's an interactive, interrelated, symbiotic relationship that kind of goes in that rather kind of cantankerous phrase, God cares not for who sings, but for the singing. But if we can kind of take the edge off of it and think that maybe there are human beings who are listening to the singing. And the objective, the intent is to keep the song alive. I know we redact and try to say what song or the song as if there's only one song. But maybe it's the song of life itself. Maybe when human beings could walk with the sacred, when their molecules and their blood and their cells and their skin weren't separated from it, maybe their lives were the expression, not the intent, not the purpose, not the goal, but their lives are an expression of keeping the song of life itself alive. So for me, they're signs, not omens, signs, just like a road sign, just like when you're in a mall finding a store. Signs that point the way to something. And I'm going to introduce a phrase, but the phrase could be disturbing. It's called build the power. But human beings only think about building the powers themselves, which is nothing but domination. But to build a power with the powers and forces of creation that love us, because that's their fabric. See, not intent, not goal, not aim. It's the substance, the alchemical substance. And so, kind of almost moved to tears. I'm getting these WhatsApp messages from the Field of Tantramat thread. It's fabulous. Gives me strength, stamina, capacity to carry on. But it isn't just about me. This sign isn't about me, because signs aren't about specific people. I've been listening to Sand Talk, which we're really advertising everywhere we can find it. Find somebody to listen, by an Aborigine of Australia. Smart man. He believes in something called yarning. And he talks about how we can't really get to the truth if we can't be with each other in a good yarn. I took his advice. So we're yarning today, you and I wrote this paragraph in the book, Minding the Mind of Creation, and I realize now that that paragraph, it left everybody free. It escaped them from the tunnel vision that human beings got stuck in. And I think it had to do with that yarning. It was a yarning. So I'm making a request this morning because we're all in an envelope of time today that's very significant. And I'd like you to, gather your broom and sweep the dust into your dustpan and get yourself settled, and let's be in this moment of time together. Because if we just be in this moment of time together, whether we understand it, whether we comprehend it, whether we're aware of it, won't matter, because we will have gathered ourselves in time. So, one of the most ancient traditions where human beings, as tribes and villages and small groups, when they gathered together in unity with the greater powers and forces of creation, they had different roles. The more I'm in a coherent field, the more it's just impossible to explain what it's like. There's no words for it except maybe precious, beautiful. But it's knitted. It has the feeling of quite possibly inseparable from life. Not life as circumstance, but life as its pulse, as its crochet, as its yarning. So in my best work with the powers and forces of creation, with whom I have a very strong relationship, none of which I presence for the most part personally with human beings, the more I'm allowed to be in the vastness of the void, of the emptiness, of the silence, of the stillness, where everything can move in a flash. Everything can reorient in us before we could even think to snap our fingers. I can do so much more knitting and smoothing and repairing and taking care of this webbing that lives between the greater natures of reality and ourselves, the higher dimensions, and you could say the third dimension, third, fourth, fifth dimension. Why? Because I can. It's my design, not my intent, not my purpose. It's my spots on my leopard skin. So something happened this past month or two where Victoria and I got together on a call. She scheduled a setting up your year, but the intent of her money, not a cheap 2 hours, was that we blended as one. Was that what I am would be free to tend what I'm contend, and that she would use the most sacred of time, her birthday. Such an amazing action from a space of the sacred, from the ancient ways of understanding our unity with the powers and forces of creation, where we're closest to the point of origin we are than any other time. Perfect timing. Her birthday. And that she would go to the mountain. And I knew I couldn't go to the mountain at this time, and it wasn't mine to do. But by her asking people to share in her birthday the personal, and to go to be with the spiral, to tend it, to have Blue Wolf there, to bring themselves there, both in the personal and in the transpersonal and the metapersonal. You see, that's magic. That's true magic. And the powers and forces that live inside of, in the depth of Shasta, live in the horizons above Shasta, that gets their attention. That level of tending, that level of care. It's a way I've lived a long time, not to give me preferential treatment, but just to try to explain or pass on the kind of life you get to live when you're not separate from what you're part of and what's part of you, each in our own unique and essential way. So here I am. It also turned out that they can't quite figure out my heart condition. It's a flutter in so many odd ways. They said my heart's gone rogue, which kind of fits, don't you think? So I can't go up and down. I can't go down or up. I have to stay within the range of altitude I'm in now. See if my heart can reset itself. But you know what? I am there. Because in the field of Tantra Mat, this is not an advertisement for joining. It's just a location in time and space where people have been building an etheric territory on behalf of all life. It's an address. Just an address. But an address that has stayed bright and lit and engaged. So yeah, it has the attention of creation. Because that's the key. The key is that we inform the field of creation so it can figure out the twists and turns and misalignments and in a faster pace in the physical world than just operating the principles of balance, harmony, symmetry, proportion. When we can point to something, it's what prayer is, isn't it? Although we made prayer our personal interest only. But in the thread of the field of Tantra Mat, we thread into it our attention. What we notice is misaligned or what might be trying to get back into alignment. And in our own way, we fold into our direct link with creation that we took 7 years to build. Shasta, 10 years. Dominator, 45 years. How many years for you have you been building that direct link with creation so you can be heard and you can contribute to bringing things back into alignment here? Do you really think we can do that? The earth in 1 minute can change the terrain of this whole planet. But we can inform, and we can care, and we can have life matter. And it registers in the consciousness of creation, and it activates that consciousness and directs it in a faster timeline than if it was left on its own without our input. And yeah, I don't think it really hears our personal needs. It's a little busy right now. We're careening into a transmutational realm where the powers of forces creation and those of humanity that remember right probably will be breaking away, not necessarily in circumstance, but in molecular tonality, breaking away to, if I could do what's in my head, I'm not sure I can put it to language, spiral, become part of the larger spiral of creation, having touchdown points like today, Victoria's birthday, a human birthday, and her friends there with her on behalf of all life, with Blue Wolf, making sure the spiral is cleaned up and ready for the summer after a year of winter. Some initiates from Dom and her there to make sure that she's reset. All in the annals of time. You've got to have things occur in time. It gathers the force. It builds the power. We're on our 11th year this year with Shasta, our 8th year in the field of Tantramat. It takes time to build the spiral of power, of so above, so below, that spirals things back into right order with harm to none. Just realignment. And yes, it's true, when things are so aberrated, when things have lost control, there's bound to be things that go out of existence and things that collapse and things that no longer have a place. But at the same time, we can be introducing what we want to have a place. We can be introducing what we want to expand into. I think we should take our mind off all the collapse and going out of existence. And if our cells could just do that, our cells don't let us so easy. But we have a consciousness. We can mindfully do it. We can have our will be strong enough to ignore the body's process and what it has to move through to readapt itself to paradise, to prepare for openings within which the greater whole of creation of which we're a part can have a place. I have to turn around the phone. Let's see if you can see him. See if he's going to get down. Kevin's with me. Being very sacred, I might add. Very sacred. Very quiet. He knows. So today, in our time together, we're going to do a journey together, you and I, on behalf of the 8 at Shasta and Blue Wolf and the mountain. We're going to introduce, I am going to introduce 2 things that came up in the week they got to Shasta a few days ago. So imagine a spiral like a tornado, and things come to mind, things like in the observing, things come to mind, things spiral into our attention. And when they get our attention, we bring them to the field. Because in this kind of sideways thinking, not the vertical, not the horizontal thinking, but in the gathering of the power, the building of the force, it's like a tornado. Whatever comes into the field is caught in that tornado in a good way. It's spiraling into our attention. It's becoming part of our awareness. As I'm going to thank Christine, who's at the river where she lives, and who's in her property, Ballymac, preparing the space, and all the rest of you in your homes, and feel the ground under your feet. Feel the physical territory of which you're a part. Bring it into the field. The etheric territory of what operates on behalf of life and has us exist as whole. 2 things came into our territory, our etheric territory. One is a young woman named Saskia. When I was in Ireland in the early 90s, Saskia, Jer, Maya, Omalora, Nicola, a whole bunch of us. We were so tight. We moved in an origination of a dream. I think a lot of us were moving in an origination of a dream during that time. I think now we're at the gate now of that dream. I don't know if you've ever been at a gate that's been closed with mighty rushing forces, chaotic and careening like banshee. It's hard. It's hard to stand at the gate and let the aberrations and the misalignments and the collapses and the memories and the shocks and the horrors. We have to stand at the gate so they can get through to the other side. They can leave here. If we don't have witnesses to wish them on their way. Saskia's dream was conscious community, and that group of people, in those times I was with them, they were that and are that, even though most of them have gone their own way. And Saskia couldn't hold, and nobody knew it until she was gone. But isn't it interesting today, on a birthday, her wake happened in Ireland with all her friends there, her conscious community. And here we are, around the world today, together. It doesn't matter how small we are. It only matters we're conscious and that we're here being community and that we're supporting an action in time and space on Mount Shasta. One pure drop of water can detoxify an entire ocean. And that's the purity of our heart, the purity of our longing, the purity of our love. Doesn't matter how we act out. Really, honestly, it doesn't. We're just getting used to ourselves, aren't we? But that we gather for these moments, that's significant. That we take time, perhaps before we're caught up in this tornado again, but that we find our way out for a moment. The 2 rings on my fingers, one is from Damanhur. It's a sacred language of Damanhur. It has to do with being at the gate. This is looks like cells. Get it closer. It's called a blood jasper because it looks like red blood cells. I wanted them on my hands today. I also have my bracelet, which has my name in Om, the Om language of Ireland, because I wanted Ireland here today. And anything we can do in the physical anchors the eternal here on this planet. Human beings once knew themselves as the mitigators of life here, not circumstantial life. But so there was enough destruction, enough creation, everything stayed in balance, that nothing went chaos out of control. By our own desire, by our own craving. We knew death happened here. We knew that this was a recycled place. The trees burn down, they mulch, new trees are born. So we had to figure out a way for the eternal and the temporal to keep a balanced whole here so we could enjoy paradise. The other thing that came into our attention was Israel and Mexico and voting. Voting for the possibility of something moving to the next greater whole. Because somehow when we crossed over the threshold of 2021, everything changed. I know people don't think so. The news certainly keeps us mesmerized, and our personal circumstances are certainly all-consuming for the most part. But at the same time, we're vertical beings that spiral with the greater systems of creation. And we take a moment like this, we can bring to Shasta our preference that our voting, humanity's ability to vote, to choose, has power that moves everything to the next greater whole. Because I doubt if we can, in our limited perception, I doubt if we really know what's right or wrong or good or bad or even up or down, probably, since if you listen to Sen talk, north is south, because they look at us upside down, or for them, right side up. But we do know our preferences. So leadership was what Victoria brought to the mountain. The up-leveling of leadership on behalf of all life and what has us exist as whole. and the sacredness of conscious community. If you can feel your crocheted webbing spiraling, nothing is so simple. It's much more complex. That's what makes it simple, actually. Then absorb the possibility of that, the potentiality of leadership that operates on behalf of all life and takes actions that help us exist as whole, and us, humans, as conscious community. In memory of the physical life of Saskia. But if you ask Nick and Anne, you'll find out that I was working really hard to get a picture of Saskia and to get words for her, and because I needed to catch her on the way out. And they found her picture for me, and then sent me the timing today of her memorial. So I caught her on the way out. So she's here with me, obviously. I just wanted to wish her well and to tell her that this mystic who she followed and whose work she did so long ago heard her. And that we will carry on while she joins the light. Because that's what we are. We are what has each other carry on. We are the ones that keeps the song going when it gets too hard for some. Or maybe timely, we'll never know. I just needed to catch her on her way out. And I did. So she could take a minute to go to the mountain. And this crazy intelligence of mine, I can show her the patterns and the threads that will get her there. Probably Liz will catch her in her arms. Because I know how much she wanted and wants for life to happen here in paradise. She knew paradise. And knows it. And then I have a prayer for you. There's just this time, I think, before us now, where we really do realize the tree beside us is observing us as we're observing it, not in judgment. What a horrible misrepresentation of life here we've been living in, not as. And then when you look up at the moon is looking down at you. and that you do whatever you can in your sentientness and your empathicness to end that separation in your experience. I remember, I'll be talking about it Sunday. This is all I'm interested in now. It's what's up. Is we have to go to work to restore our visceral union, our psychological union, our emotional union, our biological union, our spiritual union, which is always such a strange word to me because we can't help but be spirit. It's what started us here. So I want to talk about building the power. It's something in you that has you trust your love, even if you can just do it for a moment. So today, okay, after this time that you all spend with me here, they're going to go to the mountain if they're not there already. And they're going to do ceremony and ritual and whatever it takes to fulfill on what Victoria's been present to, what she's been opening up into, and what, because of her, we have access to have. Not have like something needy or something that, takes care of our poor selves, but to have a greater potentiality of paradise here on earth. So gathering the power is gathering our love, gathering our desire, our craving, our caring, focusing it on where it's going into action with a power. Mount Shasta. Doesn't matter if the Mimsies are there or not. Mount Shasta is a power to herself. She is the hub of galactic beings from who knows where, all of which operate on behalf of life. Telos, her underground goes all the way to the core of the earth. She's never been malaligned. The masters have been there. The archangels. She's quite a place. And now today we can be there on the mountain. Our spirit bodies can go anywhere while we do our day. And whatever happens for you, particularly those on the thread, but also please post on a Sacred Space for Rest and Courage group, whatever might come to you today, whatever rises in the field. One of the things we'll work on Sunday is I remember when I began to peel out. I remember when it became visceral. My favorite, of course, is when I really did see the 40-foot tall beings in that grove in Ireland. That was when it all cracked for me, like electrical explosion. The shell around me cracked and I was free, as I am now. And it isn't that I don't have troubles. I do. You all know that. My heart, my dog, COVID. But my spirit body, my spirit is alive in the universe and in the planet and in the substance of the earth and in the divas and with the fairies. I'm not limited to the body or to the personality or its history. We're multidimensional. We can go outside our own sense of self and travel the universe and gather particles from the greatest regions of the universe and bring it back here. The only problem here is we're starving. We're starving for our complexity. We're starving for our participation. We're starving for these times where we gather the power on behalf of all life. And then we have preferences. So today, whatever preferences you have, I recommend not for yourself. Because honest to goodness, the key to the kingdom is if you're operating in the meta self and you're operating on behalf of something like with Saskia, her desire and her anguish over conscious community, Maru, and her need for her country to move to the next greater whole, Israel, Africa, United States, all of the earth, all of the governments of the earth. We just pull ourselves together in kind of a woven, crocheted pulse, like the microcosmic white matter inside our body. And we pulse with it. We come alive with it. We haven't quite learned to sustain ourselves any length of time, but we can do it over the next few hours, can't we? While they're on the mountain, we can feel our crocheted microcosmic white matter pulse with our desire for everything to move to the next greater whole, to operate on behalf of all life and what has us exist as whole. We have to program ourselves for miracles. Otherwise, we won't trust building the power. We won't trust gathering the force because we've been smashed and trampled to think there's nothing out there and that we're just floundering around in a broken reality. It's just not true. It's not true. It's just not true. So this is our way of being able to be prepared for the miraculous instead of trained for the trauma, for the loss of the miraculous, for the horror of life as it's been on the surface world for a bit of time. Sometimes it just takes a while to get back when things have gone awry. I certainly know that. I've been building my body back in all its strange reconfigurations since June. So it takes a while for things to build back in the physical world, but we're at this epic moment where everything is going out of control and everything is trying to move to the next greater whole. And this is when the powers and forces gather because there's just things they can do we can't. It's not really, I don't know. We've been listening to the wrong bedtime stories. It's not like that. It's all a great love affair, really. All a great love affair. So those of you that are going to be with me on Sunday, please try to get Sand Talk, at least get through chapter 2. homework on Facebook Live. And for those of you that aren't with me on Sunday, I love you. You're with me anyway. You can't get away from me. We're all part of one shared field. We're all part of the greater whole. And as some of us get the courage to build our strength, stamina, capacity for building with the powers of creation and moving with the powers of creation, and Jesus, get our heads unlocked from all these boogeyman things of, I don't know, we're going to be taken away by evil powers. I don't know what it is. Here I am. Hello. I'm 75 years old. I've been walking with the fairies and the elementals and the water spirits and the primal force of water and the primal force of wind, the primal force of fire, the primal force of earth. I'm doing okay. If I could just be evidence, please. Lightning has not struck thee from a wrathful God. And although it almost did, but it was because my electromagnetic field, as Dr. Chari told me, I have a very highly charged electromagnetic field, not a wrathful God. Can we get over this now? Can we just get over it? Whatever those wrathful gods were, they didn't win here because we're here. Do you understand? We're here. Siska managed to take her life while we were paying attention. Thank you, Electra. Ignore my timeline. uh, on the 13th is the guardian at the gate. This is what a shared field is so important, especially with Tantra, as her time is vertical. And I promise you, the 13th of June will be this Sunday for me. It just won't look like this Sunday. And if you happen to make it to the third chapter of Sand Talk, they'll explain that to you. Because time convolutes, it weaves back and forth on each other. And so in the calendar time of the limited perceptions of human beings, it's on the 13th. And if somebody would put when I Magi is up, um, if somebody would put the date of I Magi up, that would be lovely. Because that's the two places we can gather the power. And what is the power? Our unique and essential unity with creation. Each of us. Hi, darling. She promised to pop in, and Terrell did. And so she popped. Thank you. I think I was waiting for you to pop in before I could complete. So take it into consideration that it's not worth it to think there's an enemy, or there is probably, but we already know that. We we have we have all we have all the evidence in the world we need. Don't you think it's about time to gather some other evidence? Because some of us are experiencing it, not to prove it matters to live here, but because it's signs. Like my sign was that a human being would say, I'll take it from here, Tantra. I'll take it from here. I'll use my birthday and I'll ask people to come. This is not something you have to do. You have other things to do. I'll take it from here. And when she did that, when she and the others took it from here, then I could spread out. I could spread out to Africa and Australia, and threads like Sand Talk and Saskia, and governments voting and leadership, and all these territories of life that are pulsing. I could gather them on this date, and just ask them for a brief moment in eternal time to check in that we were gathering the power for them. They're not them like personhoods. They're like substances of creation. And China. Yes, Lori. Whatever comes to mind on this call. Whatever comes to mind. Let's do it. I mean, right now we have a day that we can use. We have a day we can use. See, we can use time. We got all confused about that it's a position we have to hold, or it's a theory we have to carry, or it's a practice we have to have. No, we just put it in time. My times, Friday, sacred space for rest and courage. June 15th, we're starting Create a World. Megan, do you really want to be on my video? Make a note, because then I'll put you on. Sometimes people hit the wrong button. Um, and I'd love to if you want to. From Australia. Um, what was I saying? It's all about putting it in time. So I only have I Magi. I have several, the PowerPoints, the power moments are I Magi and Guardian at the Gate. The others are building the field, building and building and building and building and building. Shasta's building. Ah, Megan, I am absorbing myself in Sandot. I will be able to be comfortable seeing the world upside down again. I used to. I lost it. I got domesticated. And no more. No more. And thank you all for being with me personally. I appreciate it during this time. I'm losing my grip on how the facade I created so that I could be of use here. Oh, beautiful, beautiful, Sylvie. We're in it now. We're each doing our part. That's why I limited my own opportunities for participation. I just want to have a gathering place for us to continue to build, continue to understand what it is to be part of the greater systems of reality, and our ability to feel it normal and not egotistically just normal, just what we are and what's ours to do, each of us in our own way, each of us in our own magic. And now they're leaving at 9, my time. And now we'll leave them, the 8 and Blue Wolf and the mountain, and we'll carry everything in our hearts today. And we'll learn, okay, we'll learn in our own sentience, in our own empathy. We'll get our wisdom back and our how we participate and what it's like to multi-participate, to cover so many bases. And then at times we come together to amalgamate and pulse and build and pulse. And then it feeds out to what everybody's doing. I love you. I love you. Oh my goodness. There's going to be some creepy things happen, but just keep your times with creation, okay? And each other. Namaste.